Well, first off, I'm Dean with A-Turf. Been with the company for 13 years. We're headquartered out of Buffalo, New York. Our corporate ownership group is Ecorn International, which is out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. They are the largest user of recycled rubber, and the tie to the two is the rubber portion of it, rubber and urethane. We do a lot of playground surfacing, which is rubber and urethane, and then obviously the rubber that goes into the fields is kind of the tie that brings us together from a corporate group. Been with the company for 13 years. Haven't been in the industry outside of A-Turf and any other company or anything, so I'm true and blue an A-Turf guy. Strongly believe in what we sell and what we do. We're a little bit different than our competition. We're typically doing anywhere between 30 to 50 fields a year by design. The majority of our construction is done during the months of May to August, because typically the school year, everybody starts that fall sports in August and everything needs to be done by then. So we take a tremendous amount of pride in what we do and being on time, and we're very fortunate enough to be your field builder here at Clarkston. I know this was a replacement project, so you guys have the familiarity with the field, but I will tell you that not every synthetic turf system is the same. There's a lot of differences. So what you got here is you have a combination system, meaning that you have a monofilament fiber as well as a slit film fiber. The slit film in the industry is the workhorse, which provides you the durability and the playability. The monofilament gives you the aesthetics as well as what I will call a higher level of playability for the multiple sports that you guys will play here. Yes, the field is lined for football and soccer, but I imagine over time you'll have lacrosse. You got gym classes being done. There's other things that'll take place. The combination of both fibers gives you that, what I will call superior playability, aesthetics, and the biggest thing is safety as well as durability, which is important to the district because you made a large investment of replacing the old field and you want to maximize your field as long as you possibly can. Such the reason why we're here today. Yes, they are what I will call somewhat of maintenance free, but there's always stuff that needs to be done to it, and that's why I'm here to kind of give you the background and maintenance training. So a little different from our competition. When the fields were introduced back into the market in the late 1990s, the systems that dominated the market used a lot of sand and rubber. So there was tine rakes that were a lot of times distributed with fields to break up the infill, whereas this one you have basically a 50-50 blend or a 60-40 blend of rubber and sand. So you got roughly around 6.5, 7 pounds worth of infill. Sand is always going to work its way to the bottom. It's just a natural course, so it's going to sit on the bottom of or on top of the turf system, but at the bottom of the system itself. There's no reason in our systems to use a tine rake. Tine rakes are basically going to put premature wear onto the fiber, and we don't recommend them. And then as the field gets older, where the system starts to break down, the natural course that it takes, what happens is those tine rakes get in there, they start pulling fibers out, and then you have that problem. So we don't recommend any tine rakes. You don't have them here, which is good. You have a magnet that's over there. We've kind of showed you what to do on that. It's pretty basic. So from the standpoint of the greens groomer, hooking it up, it goes to the battery, red to positive, black to negative. Then you have basically the controls, which lower and raise the wheels. So for what you got, I mean, basically you're not going to have to do anything until probably April. Once you get past that first thaw, you get a snow cover, let everything work its way through, let the field dry. You never want to groom the field when it's wet, because if you do, what's going to happen is the rubber is going to stick on the fibers. It's going to look black, but once it dries, everything will fall back into place. So if you get into a situation where you got homecoming and you want to groom the field and it rains on Wednesday or Thursday and you got to come out here and do it, but you know it's going to be dry on Friday, you could groom it if you needed to. Friday when that field dries, all the rubber will work its way. It'll just fall into place. So the actuator actually raises and lowers the canister, and basically what I would say for the first 3 to 5 years, you're going to be right at the top of the infill, meaning that you're just going to get those brushes down into the fiber. Basically, you have about a 1/2 inch of fiber open, and you want to get that brush into there just to the level off of the infill, because the brush acts as brushing the fibers to stand them back up, which is important because what we're doing is simulating natural living grass, which stands up. And then you want to level off the infill, which that brush is going to do any areas that get misplaced. When you get into an aggressive brush, you're going to go all the way down so the wheels come up. That's an aggressive brush. Do you have to do it? No, but as you get into the older life, when you maybe have some stuff on the field, this brush will actually help clean it up. It'll collect into the brushes. So that's one way of doing it.
Radar field, towards the end of its.
Yeah.
The wheels will all
Yep.
be up.
Yep.
So do you think this field's wet right now?
It is wet. It is wet.
You don't want to rake it right now.
We're just gonna do in this area here just to kind of show you, and then
Does that need to be adjusted so
it's got to be level. Yeah, we'll be all right for today though. So that's the greens groomer. You know what? If you want to just drive it just a little bit. So when you're doing this portion onto the field, there's things that you want to do. One is you don't want to take the same path every single time. Yeah, see the rubber's not even sticking, so that's good. So yeah, let's see here. Hold on. All right, just a little bit. You can see it's not level, but so you can see the areas that were depressed. It's basically brushing the fibers up. You see the rubber spraying on the back. That's as low as it gets, so that's pretty aggressive. Good thing is they're not sticking. So, but you don't want to take the same pattern every time, because what you end up doing is you're turning in the same areas and you're putting stress onto the system. So, if you just make a mental note saying that you're going to do it, you start at the 5 and you make a big loop. So you're always going to skip a row. You're not going to take that tight turn.
Okay.
So skip the row in and out, and then basically you're just doing circles all the way down. The next time, if you want to go this way, that's great. And you never want to enter onto the field and exit onto the field in the same area.
Okay.
Because at the end, if you see the rubber bouncing up, you'll see it on the back brushes. You'll leave a pile of rubber. So what you do is, the trick is to drive when you got that last 15, 20 yards,
Okay.
and just raise the brushes as you're going off. That way the rubber will feed its way back into the system, and you won't have a pile and you won't have extra cleanup.
So when you say start, like, would you start in the end zone and go all the way down?
Yeah, when I do, there's a couple fields locally that I do, and I do them out of the kindness of my heart. I go there and on a Saturday and I grab their equipment and I'll groom their fields for them. And what I do is I typically start in the end zone, and then I'll cut through the top of the end zone, and then I'll come through the middle of the end zone, and then I'm at the top of the 5, lower the 5, 10, and then the next time I go on the other side and I'm going the different direction, so I'm not hitting the same way. Yeah, because the fiber has a memory in it, especially the mono.
Yep.
And you're gonna see, your system was how many years? 10 years old?
At least.
Okay, so you saw the fiber laying over. Eventually this is gonna lay over too. It's just what's gonna happen. The UV is gonna break down the fiber, it's gonna break down the memory of the fiber, and it's gonna do it. But once you get into the normal grooming of 4 to 6 weeks, and that's typically what we recommend, especially when you have marching band and all that goes with it. That's where you want to be in that time frame, 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
But the brush will act. It'll raise the brushes, the memory of it. We have enough infill in here to keep them standing straight up, and there's no reason, 6, 7, 8 years that they're not still standing up.
Same way.
And that's what we expect out of our system. So, so while you're greens grooming, while you're grooming the field, the other things that we want to look at are the hot spots, and this is the biggest thing. You don't have lacrosse on here full time, but the lacrosse crease is the most aggressive area. Soccer creases become the second. Your corner kicks become your third, and your kickoff areas are all those hot spots where there's constant kicking motion.
Yep.
And what happens is infill gets displaced. So what you want to do is when you're grooming the field, make sure that those infill levels are adequate in those areas. Now, I don't expect, in the first 4 or 5 years that you're going to have issues, but as you get into the system and it gets more used and those high traffic areas, those hot spots, you start to displace infill. If that's the case, we need to get infill. Dennis, do we leave infill here for you guys?
We got 3 garbage.
Okay, so you got 3 garbage bins, so that's great. You just take a bucket, sprinkle it on there, take a broom, you know, like just a regular broom, and broom it in there, and that's all you really need to do. So you need to watch those areas, because what happens is once that infill gets displaced, what's happening is you're putting wear on the fiber, and then if it doesn't get taken care of, then you work your way to the bottom of the system, so you're getting onto the backing, and then it starts to tear and break down, and then you got holes and empty spots. So, and being that I'm in this area quite often, I will stop in from time to time. I'll walk onto the field. You know, if it's during the summer, that's one thing. If it's during the year, I will definitely let you know that I'm on site, so you know, as well as the school. And then I'll just check those areas, and if I see anything that's not being done or needs to be done, I'll shoot you an email or text, and it's really all you need to do. Garbage cans, receptacles, you putting them out here?
We are, yes.
Okay.
We've got a few on the back side of the building over there.
Yeah.
The storage building over here.
Okay.
In the stands, obviously, but you'll see them on the outside of our fences.
Yeah.
We're not gonna put
So
them inside the fence.
is there do you have rules for the players here? No water bottles or anything like that, or?
We've got no seeds. We've got no gum.
Okay.
You know, Gatorade we use in the locker rooms, but strictly water on the fields.
Okay. Do you got signs that you?
Do not.
All right. I'll send you a couple.
Okay.
We have a couple at the office. I'll send you. You
That'd be
can
great.
use them if you want. If not, keep them here and I'll grab them. But
No, we'll use it for sure.
okay.
Thank you.
So the biggest thing is we don't, even though our signs say water only, I was totally against it. They're athletes using the field. Gatorade's not going to hurt your field. Powerade, any of that's not going to stain anything. It's going to work its way through the system. Let's just think of it logically. The bottle that it's in is an olefin. It's very similar to the plastic that's used in the field. It's not going to stain. So, but our signs do say water only. I lost the battle. It is what it is. We promote athletes to making sure that they have enough fluids and keeping hydrated and doing everything else. So I don't.
Signs for sure.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is that the bottles can be an issue. We've seen a couple cases, not on our fields, but especially clear water bottles with a little bit of water that's left in it, hits the right sun angle, can create like a magnifying glass and kind of melt some of your fibers.
Okay.
So, you know, we always want to promote to your coaches, make sure they're cleaning up after they're done and putting enough, you know, recyclables out here, recyclable cans and stuff, so that the guys can put it in there, the girls can put the stuff in there.
Perfect.
Let's face it, we know that they're kids and, you know, we pick up after them all the time. It is what it is, but
We had a meeting the other day with our coach, and that's the
yeah, so
expectation.
it's always good to hit them with the coaches, so they have, you know, kind of the pride and everything that the district took to put the field in, the replacement, and we just promote to make sure that they do their part in keeping it clean. It's a battle. We all know that.
Absolutely.
So that's good. You know, if there's any, you know, you don't want any dogs or anything out here like that, but if a dog or an animal gets out here, we had a couple cases during the install, right? Cat.
We had one yesterday, I see.
Yeah, typically it'll sit on the top. You just want to get it up as quick as possible. You know, anything that gets into the system, you can douse with water. You can clean it that way. You don't want to use any high pressure sprayers or blowers, because what you'll do is dislodge the infill. So you want to make sure that you're keeping that to a minimum. But you do anything that's sitting on top, you want to get, you know, cleaned up. If there's any urine on the field, it's going to work its way through. It is very similar to a natural grass field. You know, it works its way through the system. It works its way through the stone. Then it gets into the drainage system and gets pushed off to the side. So if anybody gets sick on the field, if somebody gets cut, same philosophy. You know, you got to clean it through. Lime juice and water, high concentration of lime juice for blood to kind of break down the enzymes and killing it, or any of the iodine stuff that, you know, you have in your first aid kits. It'll work its way down and it will not stain the fiber.
Okay.
No vehicles on the field. You know, you don't want pickup trucks or anything like that. This is a perfect piece of equipment, or gators or Kubotas. That's fine. You ever plow your field? You ever need to? Okay. We don't recommend it, but there are cases where you may need to for one reason or another if you have to. You just want to make sure that you're You're going to have to use something a little bit bigger than this, but you're going to basically take the field in fours. So you basically start at the 50, drive out to the 50, kind of push snow down to the end zone as far as you can, or you maybe have to go to the 40 depending on the equipment, and then off to the sides. And if you have a plow, you know, we want the plow to be affixed with a rubber grommet on the bottom of it or a PVC type connection. And you're always going to want to do it in lifts. You don't want to go all the way to the bottom. If you got 6 or 7 inches, you don't want to try to take it all at once. You want to do it in lifts, a couple inches at a time. And you'll find as you drive over the system, it's going to break down that snow and it's going to heat up more faster than what natural grass is going to do. So it'll melt a little bit faster. So, you know, late in that season, that winter season, hopefully it's a little bit warmer and stuff breaks down. Hopefully you never have to do it. We don't recommend it, but yeah. So, yeah. If you do, call me and we can go through it again just to make sure you guys are all set. The one thing I will say though, we say no vehicles on the field. If unfortunately, if somebody gets hurt on the field and an ambulance needs to enter it, please put them onto the field. We'll worry about after that. Obviously, the safety of an athlete is most important in getting the care. Let's just make sure the injury is severe enough where the ambulance needs to drive on it. They can be sometimes a little bit lazy. Right. I'm sure you guys have ambulances here during games.
We do.
Sit back in the back. Yeah, so that's fine. Just keep that as a reminder. If they need to drive on the field, they need to drive on the field. Okay. We'll worry about what needs to be done after. So your line for football and soccer, I don't really necessarily need to go through how we install it. You're very familiar with that.
We're going to spray lines for lacrosse.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, we recommend Sherwin-Williams or Pioneer paints. Okay. Make sure that they're suitable for synthetic turf. There's different grades of them, you know, permanent to, you know, one time. And they even have, if you get into a situation, because what we did with the lines here and the logos, if you get an official that gets a little ornery, you may want to grab a can of aerosol chalk so you can finish them if they need to.
We'll see what happens. We have on Thursday. So.
I don't, there's a couple in New York that get us. I haven't heard of anywhere else. Okay. So, questions? Hot spots are the biggest one.
Yep.
Making sure that the infill levels, and like I said, I'll be here, you know, maybe once a year, twice a year, or as needed. From a warranty standpoint, what do we have on this? 8 years. So in the stuff that I gave you and the stuff that I will send to Dennis and his team, there is procedures. So if something does happen, I'll be your point of contact. That's kind of the uniqueness of our company. Not only do I, in the beginning, educate our clients and then get into the bidding and pricing and then project management, I become your point of contact. So you ever need anything, just let me know.
Great.
But typically what we'll do is we'll send you in our binders a layout of the field to allow you to use as a map if something happens. That way you can circle something on the layout, say, hey, you know, the hash mark at the 12-yard line right here is coming up. And then that gets sent to our guy, Matt, in our office, and then he'll dispatch our guys from Michigan to go there and fix it, or he'll come out and do it. Okay. Typically, we're anywhere between 48 to 72 hours in our reaction to calls. You know, the crew that you had out here does a phenomenal job. I don't expect to have any issues, but it is what it is. If something does happen, just call me. I'll initiate everything that needs to be done. And if you don't have the forms for one reason or another, we'll send them to you. You fill them out, and then we dispatch and get everything taken care of. Are you comfortable making minor repairs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you have, actually I have a tube of adhesive here. So if you have a gun, I'll give you that tube, and that can just be kept on the shelf. You can buy them at Lowe's and Home Depot. It's listed in the manual to what kind it is. It's our PL adhesive. The good thing is, like I said, they sell it at Lowe's. So you basically, if something does happen and you got a game that night, you know, dab a little glue underneath it, glue it down, and let it be. But we still want to know about it because we're going to still dispatch somebody out here to look at it to make sure it's done right. And if it's not done right, we'll take care of it, and that's okay. It gets you through the emergency that you had. And then also we'll do, when we're at any site, those guys do a full field inspection to make sure that there's nothing else that takes place. So
There's a full roll of tape in there.
seam tape. Yeah, the only time you'd really get into a seam tape issue or situation is if something dramatically happens where you're going to have to cut out a piece or something.
Okay.
For what typically in any of the seams that may come up, there's already going to be tape underneath it, because typically they're the inlay areas, which is all your hash marks and your numbers, any lines that didn't go fully through your media line. So there'll be tape underneath there already, so you can just glue it right back down and glue it down. You know, in the body of the field where there's no seaming, if something does get ripped for some reason or another because of equipment that gets dragged or something like that, then that's when we'll put seaming tape underneath there. I don't expect you to have to do that. It gets a little bit more complicated because you got to remove all the infill and everything else. So the one thing I will say with the new field, you've seen the backing of it.
Yep.
So when we're cutting in things, we're not always in between the tufts. So we're not in between the beads. So some of the fibers do get cut, and over time they will displace and they'll be on top of the field. I actually saw one here earlier. Don't be alarmed that your field's shedding. The first half of year, you're going to get that. So in April, when you get on this, or if you get on it before homecoming, you'll pick up any of that loose debris on the top and it'll brush them off. And I always recommend when you're done, if you can, just to clean off the brushes. You know, get underneath there and just kind of, you can stand it on its side and just brush them off.
Okay.
Because if you go back on the field with the fibers that are on there that get trapped in there, and you drive over the field again and groom it, eventually they're going to start to just fall off the brush and get back onto the field.
Gotcha.
And you'll notice when you do the grooming that you don't necessarily see fibers that are loose on the field. You'll see like a green on the white or the white on the blue, and you can see some of it.
Yep, you can.
That'll all dissipate over time,
Okay.
but you'll find that when you do it, there's a lot of fibers that are on top of the turf just because of that process.
Yep.
It's kind of that lay down process and working its way in. So